Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. If you are a child of the 90s, like I am, oh, this is one you are going to love. Colorado at Nebraska, Saturday night. This is that NBC primetime game, 7:30 Eastern. Nebraska, a 7.5-point favorite. The over-under set at 57.5. It's going to be a fun one. I know that I'm fired up. I know that you all are fired up as well. Let's talk about these two teams. I want to start with Colorado. And if you listen to Thursday night's post-game show, we talked a lot about Colorado. I did not see the Colorado game the same way as everybody else did, because everybody else on social media, all I saw was, oh, Colorado's the same team as a year ago. Shador's amazing. Travis Hunter's amazing. Everybody else stinks. The defense stinks. The O-line stinks. It's not really how I saw it at all. Colorado wins, 36-28, I think 31-26 was the final score. They win 31-26. To me, there was one narrative that I believed was accurate, but there was one narrative that I didn't believe was accurate about Colorado. What I believe is accurate, the O-line to me maybe has improved, but not to the level where it needs to be for Colorado to be elite all season long. Colorado, we know what happened last year, and I guess to the credit of the offensive line, they only gave up 1 sack. Last year, Colorado gave up 56 sacks, which is an insane number for a 12-game season. But Colorado, I did not think was good enough along the offensive line. Added a bunch of really high-level transfers. Jordan Seaton comes in as a 5-star. But what concerned me, they gave Shador time in the pocket. That's obviously good news. But what concerns me is that there were those 2 or 3 times a game where they had to pick up a yard on the ground, and they simply couldn't do it. There was the 4th down play early in the game, couldn't get a yard. Late in the game, needed a yard or 2, couldn't get it. And so I know Coach Prime kind of said all the right things. Hey, we took what they gave us, but that does concern me. The one place, though, that I fundamentally disagree with people, I felt like I was watching a different game than everybody else, was the Colorado defense. Now, look, are they the 85 Bears? Are they the 2022 Georgia Bulldogs? Probably not. That defense looks very improved to me. And again, you had to watch the game. Wasn't perfect. Early in the game, North Dakota State hit a couple slants. Early in the game, North Dakota State's quarterback, Cam Miller, got loose a couple times. But if you watch the game, middle of the second quarter, things calmed down. And then, by the way, Colorado committed a couple stupid penalties that kept North Dakota State drives alive. But second half, North Dakota State did not score until like the final 5 minutes of the game. And it's funny, I looked it up just to make sure I wasn't missing anything. North Dakota State finished with like 440 yards of total offense. That sounds like a lot. But if you actually go back, they got 88 yards on the final drive. Remember, they had to score that, Colorado's in the prevent defense, whatever. They got 88 yards on the final drive. They got 49 yards on the final play, the Hail Mary that fell just short. So you finished with 449 yards. A tenth of them came on the final play of the game. About a quarter of them came on the final series of the game. And Colorado, outside of that, gave up like 350 yards of total offense. Not perfect, but not terrible. And the other thing is, though, the defensive front actually played really well. Yes, North Dakota State's quarterback got loose a couple times, but North Dakota State really, outside of the quarterback, could not run the football. So the defense, to me, is better than people are giving it credit for, even if I think the O-line needs some work. In terms of their opponent, Nebraska, let me just say this, Nebraska fans, and I've said it a million times, I'm a child of the 90s. It's been a tough couple of years for Nebraska. This is the first time it feels real. There's been years, there's peaks and flows, ebbs and valleys. You've won, not recently, but even under Bo Pelini, you won 9 games, but it didn't feel real, sustainable. This feels freaking real, okay? Dylan Raiola comes in, #1 recruit in America. We know the story. His dad played there. His uncle coaches there. Flips from Georgia right before National Signing Day. He gets named the starter. Nebraska finishes with over 200 yards of total, 200 yards passing, 200 yards rushing. Raiola finishes with about 250 yards passing himself. 500 yards of total offense, as I just said. The defense looks elite. And most importantly, I talked about the Colorado sack totals. Nebraska's bugaboo last year was turnovers. This is a wild stat. Nebraska turned the ball over 31 times last year. That doesn't include the fumbles that they recovered, including about 5 or 6 against Colorado last year. I think they turned it over 5 times against Colorado, maybe fumbled 6 or 7 times. 1 turnover for Nebraska. If they can take care of the football, they're going to win a lot of games this year. Now, in terms of the game itself, on Saturday night, first of all, the crowd's going to be amazing. Nebraska fans, they've showed out for a lot of bad football. They are going to be loud and ready to go. I think this one is a little bit more close and competitive than people think. First off, from the Colorado has the ball, Nebraska doesn't. Think it's interesting. Last year, Nebraska lost in large part because they turned the ball over too much, but Shedeur still cooked. Shedeur had about 400 yards passing in that game. And so if you look at Nebraska, this was a top 10 defense a year ago, top 20 defense nationally a year ago. But if there was one question that they had, the secondary wasn't great, about 40, 41, 42 nationally in pass defense. That's not bad, but compared to the run defense, it was really, really, really good. And so when I look at Colorado, that is a team that can throw the ball all over the field. And if secondary and defensive back play is your weakness, that has to be a concern, especially because Colorado cooked you last year. And I think Colorado is probably a little bit better in the passing game in 2024. So that's the positive. The negative, I don't know how Colorado is going to run the football. Colorado, to me, I need to see it from the O-line. It's no disrespect, and maybe they're great in pass blocking, but you're not going to be able to survive the season if you cannot consistently run the football. That's not rocket science. You understand that, whatever. So Colorado, I believe, will be able to get those big chunk plays. They really largely moved the ball at will against North Dakota State. Remember, even that North Dakota State game, there was the weird kicked interception on the goal line. That's at least another 3, maybe 7 points. I think Colorado's going to be able to move the ball at least through the air. I'll also say this from the Nebraska perspective. It went perfect last Saturday. I am not trying to disparage or make Nebraska fans feel bad about a 40-7 win. Where my only concern with Nebraska is pretty straightforward. Everybody's talking about, well, how good was North Dakota State, Colorado, barely. Well, here's the same thing. It's the same thing for Nebraska. That UTEP team that they played is not good. They won 3 games last year, fired their coach, first-year head coach. They got like 3 starters back from last year. UTEP is not very good. And so I think it's going to be a little bit more competitive. I see a lot of people, Nebraska's going to blow them out. Colorado's a disaster. One, I'm curious, can Nebraska establish the run early? Because I do think that Colorado defensive front is good. And obviously Dylan Raiola, first big-time game. He's a big-time player. He models himself after Patrick Mahomes, wears number 15. But what's also interesting, remember, Colorado really, the only time they got burned in the run game last week was a running quarterback. Raiola isn't going to run the football because he's the franchise, and Matt Rule's not getting him killed in week 2 against Colorado. So to me, I think Nebraska is maybe a little bit more conservative than they were in the previous week. I think that Colorado defense is a little bit better than people think. My official best bet, I think this over-under is way too high. This, to me, feels like a game that will be won in the 20s. Now, listen, Nebraska could break a few big plays. Nebraska could, 1 play, 85 yards, 2 plays, 62 yards, whatever. But I don't think this is just a shootout back and forth. Nebraska won't allow it to happen. And this, to me, feels like a game in the 20s. So my actual best bet, I know it's not exciting. 57.5 to me is way too much. I'll take the under a 57.5. I don't feel great about picking this game as far as a winner and a loser because I think Colorado with those wide receivers can pull the upset. Will they? I don't know, but they got the more experienced quarterback, the more explosive playmakers. Defense isn't as good as Nebraska's. I'm not going to pretend it is. I can see Nebraska pulling off Colorado pulling off the upset. I'll take Nebraska to win. I would lean a Colorado cover, but I think Nebraska or the under 57.5 is the best bet. I'll say Nebraska 27-24. Don't feel great about it. May change it by the end of the week, but my official best bet pick is the under of 57.5.